Next on the Delaware Way, Delaware's Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester talks about her first year in office and what she hopes to accomplish in the future. This is the Delaware Way. Welcome to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Menti. We are proud to have with us Delaware's only representative in the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. You've been there for a little over a year now. I always like to ask a new congresswoman or congressman what their expectations were, what their disappointments have been, and what they saw when they got there.
Right. Well, first, thank you, Larry, for having me. I feel like it's our anniversary.
That's
coming
right.
back a year later. And, you know, it's funny. I don't think I really had expectations. I don't think I could have predicted what this year would be like. But I can say that back in 1987, I started off as an intern for then Congressman Tom Carper, who is our current senator. And I remember going to Washington and standing on the steps of the Capitol. You take a picture with the congressman, and I remember thinking, wow, wouldn't it be incredible to someday be back here? And then life happened, 30 years or so go by, and everything from raising my children to going through a divorce, living outside of the country for a moment, and then becoming a widow, and coming back to those steps. It is an incredible honor. I could not have predicted some of the volatility of the times, but I can say that every day I feel really humbled, and it's brought my joy back to be of service, especially at this time.
Wow. I very few people that have been there for a year, I hear them say it's brought my joy back, because so many people go into the job with idealism. Right. They're going to change the world. They're going to take on these big problems, and then they find out it's not that easy, that the system in many ways is broken, and especially for freshman congresspeople, they can't get much done.
Well, it's interesting. I think part of it is the fact that I came into this at the age of 54. I mean, I ran for the first time for anything in my life at the age of 54. And I think that meant I had many years of real life experiences. Like I mentioned, some of the ones that average everyday people go through. My kids went through Delaware public schools and trying to figure out how to, pay for college and things like that. But at the same time, when I served in different capacities here in Delaware, like head of Department of Labor or head of state personnel, we were dealing with those tough issues of, how do you provide affordable, accessible, quality health care? We were dealing with recruitment and retention of employees. I even had to investigate the state police for racial and sexual discrimination under one of our governors. And so I don't think I came in with this idealized version. I came in with the notion that in order to solve big problems, we have to come together. We have to try to find common ground. And we have to be willing to say, what am I willing to just put everything into to make our lives better? And so I think I walked in with this, with a different perspective than a lot of people. And then I think I also walked in feeling that part of my purpose is to help to bring people together. I only ran on two main things. One was jobs in the economy, everything tied to jobs in the economy. And then the other was bringing people together. And because to me, we're not going to solve any of the big issues until we start coming together, until we start working together. And so in my first year, it was intentional that I tried to do things that brought people together in addition to the work that we do, every day.
And you think that was successful, that you did bring people together?
I do. We're not all the way there yet, because I call myself a pragmatic optimist. We're not all the way there yet, but there are things that we as a Congress can point to that have been done in a bipartisan way. A lot of people don't hear those stories. They don't hear the work that we have a bipartisan, bicameral heroin task force, opioid task force. We've introduced a package of bills. We, as a House of Representatives, in a bipartisan way, passed a career and technical training education bill. that's important as we're trying to deal with our jobs and the skills mismatch that we have. That's something that is positive.
But it's interesting you say that, because you're right. There are a lot of bills that get through and that are bipartisan, and they don't get the coverage. And in many ways, the problem lies with the media that loves to cover the fights. Anything that you're going after each other and not the successes.
Right. Well, it's funny because, well, there's a couple things. You asked on that first question. I'll tell you a little bit, too, about some of the things that we've tried to do that are more on a human basis, not just on the floor of the House. I actually co-sponsored with 2 Republicans and another Democrat a night at the Holocaust Museum, where they shut down the museum and allowed us to talk about immigration afterwards, our freshman class. I co-sponsored a night March Madness basketball. I don't even like basketball like that. My dad will be mad I said that, but I'm not but I wanted to create an environment where we could just see each other as humans. We signed a pledge of civility on Valentine's Day, the freshman class, and then we expanded it to other members to say, we're not going to agree on everything, but we can at least agree to be respectful and to hear each other's points of view. On your question about the media, I think that it's a part of a larger culture that we're in. And I think it's incumbent upon each of us. If we want to see that change, then we have to make that change. What do we turn on the television? How many doses of things can you take? I talked to a roundtable of high school students here in Delaware, and I asked them, where do you get your news? And it was so interesting, first of all, the diversity within that group. And one of the students was like me. He said, I listen to, in the morning, I'll do Fox, MSNBC, and CNN. In little spurts. And I always say to myself, if I hear them all say the same thing, I know, woo, this is really news. So.
No, that is absolutely the case. I didn't know the discussion was going to take this direction, but what you're talking about is so important. I had heard a congressman that speak a few weeks ago that was talking about the fact, and he's retired, and he said when he was in Congress, everybody got together for church, everybody would meet, and you couldn't hate the other side. You couldn't, because you were with them all the time.
Right.
So what you're talking about, although it might seem small to some people, is extremely important. Just getting people to commingle and get to know each other. That's going to be the way it happens, because now everybody goes to their districts and fundraisers.
Exactly. And so we're trying to make those opportunities. One of my first bills was actually co-sponsored by Brian Fitzpatrick out of Pennsylvania, a Republican, in my freshman class, and we focused on small business and making sure that there are incubators and accelerators to grow small businesses. And so again, having had that opportunity to talk about things that we have in common, it allowed us to find opportunities to partner on legislation as well.
It seems like a small change, but that's how cultures change. It starts with a small change.
Right.
Well, again, I want to start talking about some issues, but you've been kind enough to stick around for a few more segments. When we come back, I want to talk about something that you haven't been able to get along with the other side on, the SNAP funding, when the Delaware Way continues, with Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester right after this.